Welcome everyone to an episode of the Ol'Timers Comic Book Show. I'm your host, Johnny Machine Hughes, and if I sound a bit croaky, it's because I am dying with man flu. Yes, don't worry, no COVID here. I have been tested. My comic books are safe. Joining me this time around, as always, on the Ol'Timers, here we have the Professor.
Thank you, Johnny. How are you?
Well,
Well, I know how you are. I mean, you're sick. Yeah, you're sick.
And of course, we have the 13th Crusader. Yo. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about football. See what's happened. Look at everything that's going on there. What a crazy week.
Yeah. It's like a quarterback musical chairs this week, huh?
You think?
Yeah.
I just think. I don't know. It's not quarterbacks I'm thinking about. It's Tyreek Hill that we've got. So there you go.
Devontae Adams as well.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe by the end of the week you'll have Tom Brady.
I doubt that very much. So we have a bit of a situation. So I'm going to have to leave the room for 2 seconds. Settings have gone all bonkers again on me. So just bear with me because I need to leave and resort out my computer, even though I checked it before we started. So give me 2 seconds, guys.
Yep. What's up, Mike?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised too at the Deshaun Watson signing.
Oh, yeah.
Mayfield now is on the block.
Yep. Matt Ryan to the
Right.
Colts, right?
Yeah.
Geez, it's like, where are these? The AFC is crazy with quarterbacks now.
Yeah, the AFC West is probably going to be the division to watch.
Yep. So
Russell Wilson with Denver. I mean, who would have saw that one coming?
I kind of thought that last season was his last season in Seattle, but I never knew he'd land in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man. It's just never looks good for our teams, huh?
I had a great laugh yesterday because I saw a tweet. Somebody was putting out their win predictions and stuff, and they put the Giants down for 8 wins, and I couldn't stop laughing.
Wow.
Because I'm like, there's no way that's going to happen. No way.
No.
6 wins, I'm good for 6. I just don't see 8.
I don't see 8 for New England this year either. We got worse. We haven't done anything in the offseason.
Yeah, and I don't know what the draft is looking like. I haven't paid attention to the draft because of all the moves that happened this week.
Right?
Sorry about this. For some reason, StreamYard does not like sharing screens. And every time I come into it, I have to go back out and give my permissions. It's shocking. I checked it before we started, so hey, at least I know what we're doing, all right? Yeah. So we'll count us in on 3, 2. So this is the March Madness. 13th, this was your idea, so tell us what it's all about, sir.
March Madness?
Yeah.
Whenever I hear March Madness, that means just to hunker down, grab a few long boxes, and read as many comic books as you can.
Whoa. Okay.
But otherwise known as a very big event of college basketball.
All right.
I admit I'm not a college basketball fan like that, but I love the concept of March Madness, just the intensity, the tight schedule, and it's winner moves on and loser goes home. That's it.
Yeah.
So somebody will stay standing.
The tournament aspect of it is really good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. So how's that theme apply to us then with these books that we've chosen? Because we ain't playing basketball.
Well, you can look at it in a couple of ways, right? For the players, it's intense time. They could be going nuts, not knowing if they have a future tomorrow to keep the season going. And or for those that love to fill out their brackets, it's almost impossible to pick out a perfect bracket. It's 64 teams.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Okay, so with that in mind, with that idea firmly planted, we have a plethora of books to choose from. And we're going to start off with a bit of a heavy hitter. 13, this is your book. We've got them all here. So we have Batman, the Cult. Let me give you some deets. Written by Jim Starlin, art by Bernie Wrightson, colors by Bill Ray, letters by Todd Klein.
Ah, the
What?
letters are actually by John Costanza. There's a correction in issue 2, stating
Oh,
that they made an error in issue 1.
there you go. Uh, where's this from? December 1987. On a certain bidding site, you can get issues 1 through 4 for 40 whole English pounds. On Go Collect, number 1 itself is worth $30.
Hmm.
Right, so there you go. So 13th, this was your choice. Take us off, please.
Definitely. So I'll piggyback on what you said with the cost. It's not that bad. It's an inexpensive series to get.
Mm-hmm.
Well worth the read, in my opinion. I remember when this came out, and it's significant, at least in my opinion, for a number of reasons. So first off, Jim Starlin, really, and Bernie Wrightson, do you really need an introduction for these guys? If you collect comic books, Jim Starlin's he's done so many stories, and the fact that these two guys team up together, it's incredible. So Jim Starlin, obviously known, creator of Thanos, and he's got a number of books out there that always seem to center on theological or themes that question faith in oneself. So he's known for that, and he does that a lot in here. Bernie Wrightson, probably best known as the artist on Swamp Thing, but he's attached to so many horror uh, illustrations. It's crazy. So, and when we were thinking about March Madness and touching on insanity, this is the first thing that popped up into my mind. Is this is really a story of Batman being tested to his absolute limits and temporarily going insane. And I like that because it brought Batman down to earth. And in this time, Jim Starlin took Batman somewhere new, but he didn't change Batman overall to the point where um, it didn't rewrite history, so to speak. This was
Mm-hmm.
just a very good series. It has a beginning and an end. It introduces new characters, and like I said, it really tests Batman and brings him to a place he's never been before. So I'm trying my best not to spoil it, but pretty much Batman in issue 1 is captured by a new character at this time called Deacon Blackfire. And Deacon Blackfire um, was supposedly a person who had lived for more than a century. Now, when you're reading this book, you're kind of left wondering, is this true or not? So as a reader, you're kind of like, well, I don't know what to believe at this point. The way it also opens up, it's crazy. Obviously, Batman's been drugged. He's under hallucinations.
Mm-hmm.
He's seeing things that he believes, but then he knows isn't true. This series took, like I said, Batman to a new level. In here, in issue 1, Batman kills the Joker in his dream, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why not? So you kind of wish this would happen, but then you're like, nah, Batman would never do anything like that. But he thought about it. He hallucinated about it.
Mm-hmm.
The other surprising thing was he was captured. So this is an unusual position for Batman, as it is,
Mm-hmm.
being caught and imprisoned, drugged, and pretty much left hanging around. No pun intended. But issue 1 mainly focuses on the origins of Gotham City, Deacon Blackfire,
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. So you have all these little self-contained stories within this series, which I thought was awesome. Um, Deacon Blackfire ultimately is a con artist. He uses the guise of religion to kind of say, hey, look, join my cause. And Deacon Blackfire's ultimate goal is to take control of Gotham City. And I'm going to have a comment on that later on.
Okay.
But one of the things with this book, in book 2, we see something, or the readers see something that Batman doesn't do, which is kill.
Mhm.
So even though he was under hallucination, you see Batman with a gun, and then he's killing somebody because he was that drugged and that brainwashed that he ends up joining Deacon Blackfire's cult.
Mm-hmm.
Deacon Blackfire's cult was mainly a group of homeless people from Gotham City, and basically giving them new purpose and having them join his army. Because remember, his ultimate goal was to take control of Gotham because Gotham was full of corruption, and Deacon Blackfire, in his eyes, wanted to cleanse Gotham of that.
Hmm.
So Batman is literally, um, he's gone. He's like so gone under that he's questioning everything. He sees things that aren't real. When he's realizes what's happening, he's still questioning himself. He's full
Hmm.
of doubt. He's just not, he's not right anymore. Luckily, as the story progresses, he's kind of slowly getting out of it.
Hmm.
But the one thing that really like surprised me here was just really the use of Jason Todd in this story,
Yeah.
and how critical that Jason was to this story.
Hmm.
And you know, Johnny, that I'm not a fan of Jason Todd. This is probably the only one of two stories that I ever liked with Jason Todd. This is one of them, and the other one is when he died. Okay,
Harsh, but
it
true.
is. But yes. So, but think about it. So Batman's trapped in the sewers. He's trying to get out of this. He's hasn't eaten. He's been beaten. He's fighting against himself, and this is how Jason finds him.
Mhm.
And Jason pretty much brings him back to reality and saying,
Yeah.
"Look, you've been gone for so long, and I've been, I found you. We got to get out of here." Jason pretty much infuses faith in Batman to say,
Yeah.
"Look, we're gonna fix this, and we got to make this right. You got to, we just got to do this for the sake of Gotham." So this at this time, this was weird for me to read Jason Todd in this capacity,
Yeah.
right? Because I would read about him in obviously in the pages of Batman, but in Teen Titans as well. It just was different. When Jim Starlin got a hold of Jason Todd in this story, I felt like Jason was needed
Hmm.
for this story to work. So I think he was a very important component of selling the reader of how Batman gets out of this predicament, because Batman was in that deep,
Yeah.
and that's what I appreciated about this book. But Deacon Blackfire is an absolute mess. The guy believes that bathing in blood increases his longevity and allows him to fulfill his purpose of eradicating the corruption in Gotham. So towards the end of the series, Batman and Robin, the Jason Todd Robin, basically go to war with Deacon Blackfire, who at this point the police, the military, the National Guard were called in. They imposed martial law. It was that bad. And I'm gonna have a comment on that. Put a pin on that for a minute, and then Batman and Robin have to somehow go against the odds. Towards the end of the series, you see something else again that you're just not accustomed to, and that's Batman. Just with the pose of holding a rifle and what have you is just kind of took me by surprise, even
Yeah.
though they're like tranquilizers. But it's just the look to see Batman, strapped up with all these weapons. A new monster truck, Batmobile, appears in this series.
Hmm.
Wouldn't be the last time we saw something similar to this. It was awesome. So I just love this whole series in general. Now, what I wanted to say about the putting the pin on it, this story pretty much got borrowed in The Dark Knight with Bane taking over Gotham when he wanted to cleanse Gotham of its politicians and what have you, and causing anarchy. So I kind of put those two together, as far as that movie kind of borrowing some elements from the series. But back to the book, though, I love it. Deacon Blackfire, just a guy that came out of nowhere to convince people in Gotham, homeless or otherwise, that you have a purpose and a cause. Come with me, believe in me, and back me up, and I will take care of you. Like, these guys were killing people, innocent civilians left and right, who they thought
Hmm.
were criminals. They went Punisher style. If they thought that you were corrupt, you're gone,
You're
just
gone.
so that he can get stock for his blood, and so on and so forth. It was a crazy book. It pushes Batman to the absolute limit. Deacon Blackfire basically just took him down several pegs, mocked him, And even towards the end, he's like, "You can't kill me. If you kill me, you're making me a martyr."
Yeah.
So this was just a new element for Batman, and towards the end, Batman just beats the crap out of him and lets his followers tear him to shreds.
Cool.
Which,
You
so
did well with no spoilers there.
yeah, I
Yeah.
tried.
All right, Professor, what do you think of this book?
I thought it was great. I mean, I'm not as big of a Batman fan as you guys, obviously, but I thought Bernie Wrightson's art in this was just, I'd never seen Bernie draw Batman before, and I thought this was fantastic. It reminded me a lot of Kelly Jones's Batman covers, especially this panel here with the big ears, and that's the one thing. Like, I really loved Kelly Jones when he drew Batman, and I thought that that Bernie Wrightson's portrayal of the Jason Todd Robin looks actually more like an age appropriate sidekick as opposed to the kid sidekick. So I thought that was pretty cool too, because I think it brought Jason Todd to almost like on the same level, and he was kind of the hero in this limited series too, because Batman was out of sorts for so long. But when we talk about, we're talking about like this whole theme of the show of madness. Batman was a perfect character to bring up to talk about madness too, because I think that, I mean, there's something not right with him anyway, and just to think of someone that obviously has some kind of mental problems coming into this, actually experiencing the drug-induced hallucinations and everything that he was seeing here, and then being brainwashed into serving Deacon Blackfire. I was so different when I come at it as a point of, this is someone that's already kind of deranged a little bit, becoming even like more deranged, and like, what kind of a handle do you feel like Batman has normally on his psyche, right? To the point where he had to, like, where he lost it and kind of lost control, and where he never really loses control, as opposed to like where he is on his baseline. So I kind of thought it was interesting, just to kind of analyze him a little bit. But this was a great book from beginning to end. And then if you didn't bring up the final issue of Batman and Robin with the guns just shooting people, and then there was another scene where he's in the Batmobile and he lets a woman die so he could get to Deacon Blackfire. And I thought that was a little more telling of Batman doesn't do that. Batman wouldn't have let someone die. And so I just thought it was different story choices from Jim Starlin that I didn't expect to see. And so that's what made it interesting for me.
Let's have a look. See, I've got the book here. All right, so I'm going to say straight off the bat, for me, Jim Starlin's great. Bernie Wrightson's great. Whoever did the letters, I don't care which one it was, great. The problem for me with this book is, first time I read it, I found it absolutely super disturbing, and as you should, because it is quite scary in its own little way. That said, I read this out of order. It's when I got massively into Batman into the 80s, this was one of the books I picked up first. But in doing so, you miss the fact that it mines the Dark Knight Rises so much. You've got Bernie Wrightson's art, which has got Klaus Janson style inks all over it. You've got the retelling of the Wayne murder again. You've got the commentary pages, the talking heads, that go on. Look, I mean, that could have been taken out of the Dark Knight Rises, Dark Knight Returns. Could have been poof. There it goes. Just lift it out.
I was going to bring up the talking heads because I don't like the talking heads.
So. Yeah, and from there on in, looking at it now, there is a lot of dislike for this book. Not because it's subject or it's art or anything. I mean, yeah, fair enough. We've seen a monster truck Batmobile firing stuff all over. I've seen a monster tank Batmobile already in the Dark Knight Returns. This isn't anything new for me. So no, when you look back at the grander scheme of things, this book came out in 1987, the end of that era of DC where every book was trying to deconstruct superheroes with Dark Knight Returns, with The Watchmen, with V for Vendetta. You know, this is the last book of that batch. And you can tell because it's like, right, we're having to mine a book that was out less than a year before to tell this story. And Jim Starlin tried to, I mean, he's a great writer. We spoke to him. He has a theme. He likes to sort of like really challenge his characters. So in this one, it's the mental aspect of Batman that's get challenged. Don't forget, Jim Starlin wrote 10 Nights of the Beast, which was a physical outmatched Batman. So to me, when Starlin's writing Batman, that's the thing that he's going for.
Just as an aside too, with Jim Starlin, that's evident too in his Warlock series.
Yes.
Where he pushes Warlock to the brink.
Yeah.
So he had done that in the 70s. So yeah, that kind of supports the point you're making with when he takes a character and I'm going to write a story, but how do I challenge this character?
Well, and he's also got the villains of the Universal Church of Truth.
Right.
And, you know, so he does have a lot of bring out religious aspects into his writing. And he did it in Dreadstar as well.
So those themes are prevalent in that. So if you like Starlin's body of work, I'm sure you'll see nods and ticks in this to other things. Bernie Wrightson. Yes, Bernie Wrightson predates Kelly Jones by a few years, but Bernie Wrightson's Swamp Thing is gorgeous. Yeah, here I don't think is his smoothest work. I don't know if it's because he was going for the Klaus Janson style scratchy inks or what's going on there. I like Klaus Janson when I see Klaus Janson. I don't like people trying to imitate Klaus Janson. But if you look at Wrightson's Brave and the Bold Swamp Thing, for example.
So that could be the fault of the inker too, right? I mean,
yeah, could be. There's no inker listed in the credits, I don't think so. So no, for me, I think this was an interesting book. Does it really? I don't think it holds up as well now as it did when it first came out. I'm kind of on a pass on that one. I'm afraid. Sorry, 13th.
I didn't write it.
You don't care, right? Harsh. Right. Obviously, it must be the flu in me speaking. Right. So before we get into our next book, we'll take a break for one of our ads. You know what? I don't think we've heard this one for a while. Check this one out. There you go, Crisis in the Toyverse. Be sure to get all your figures news. I'm sure Bob will be pleased to know that I've recently picked up the 3 Jokers Batgirl figure, but you never know. Right, Professor, I think it's your choice next, is it not?
It is, and I was a bit conflicted. I was of two minds. If you want to kind of go there. I didn't know whether or not I wanted to pick Avengers number 59 or Avengers number 213. Which
so what's the difference? What happens in 213? Give us a quick countdown.
So 213 is where Hank Pym has his kind of mental break, where he realizes, or he had recently just rejoined the Avengers as Yellow Jacket, and he wants to make an impact. He wants to make sure that everybody understands his role on the team. And the cool thing about that particular lineup was it was the original lineup, right? Plus Tigra. That to me already is like Hank Pym is already feeling his kind of inferiority complex, and he wants to you know he wants to save the team. He wants to look like the savior. And in issue 212, he almost kills the villain they're fighting. After Captain America talks her down, he shoots her in the back. And so in issue 213 was the court martial of Yellow Jacket. So they know that, Hank feels like he's going to be drummed out of the Avengers. So he builds a robot to come in and destroy the team. But what nobody knows is that there's the robot has an off switch that only Hank knows about, and supposedly the robot's unbeatable. So anyway, Janet finds out. Janet finds out that he's building this robot, and he strikes her in one of the only moments of domestic violence that we've ever seen in the Marvel comic.
Well,
the most, I would say, the most important moment.
All right, okay.
For Hank Pym, anyway. And then to make matters worse, she turns up with her blackened eye and saves Hank after the robot took Hank out. And then he ends up getting drummed out of the team, and the storyline continues for a couple of years after that. With eventually he kind of comes around back to zero. But this was in 213 was that was actually him. That was him having that moment, and he did hit Janet. He was not under the influence of any kind of villain. But here, I wanted to go with issue 59 because this is really where he has his first mental break, and that to me was important.
Let me give you the stats then. So this Avengers 59, December 1968. You can get this book in the UK for somewhere between 25 to 75 pounds. On Go Collect, a grade 4 can set you back $65 with a 9.6 setting you back a cool $1,600. Yeah. Who'd have thunk, right? So it's written by Roy Thomas, art by John Buscema, inks by George Klein, letters by Sam Rosen. No colorist was credited, but I imagine it was probably Mary Severin or whatever, or whomever I should say.
Could have been a team up.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent. There you go. So let's get into this.
Yeah, so you meet Yellow Jacket on the very first page of this book, and to me, I think this is probably the most dynamic of all of Hank's costumes. I think this costume is the one that I really like Hank for. Of course, he was Yellow Jacket when I started reading the Avengers. So I had to kind of go back and learn about Ant-Man and Goliath and Giant Man and all the other roles he had before. And here, this is also 2 issues after the first appearance of the Vision. And so we have kind of a transforming team in our midst here, where we have the introduction of Vision, we have Black Panther, Hawkeye, and Wasp still on the team, but it's kind of a smaller crew than we're used to seeing in the Avengers. But Hank, who is already on the team as Giant Man, or Goliath rather, is nowhere to be found. And you find out through the course of this issue, as Yellow Jacket turns up, that he spins this tale when he comes in to join up, that he says, "I'm here to join up," and Hank's not coming because I polished him off.
Poor Jan faints. It's like,
oh yes.
Oh, catch me, I'm a damsel.
Right. So
she was stung by his news.
In a rare moment of Avengers history, they really don't do anything with Yellow Jacket, and he kidnaps Janet and gets away, which is very, very strange that they didn't stop him. And then of course you find out later, and by the end of the issue, you really kind of know that it's Hank anyway. The readers pretty much know, because Janet says he's going to marry him at the end of the issue. But here, I like this whole middle of the issue where they have this big long fight scene between between Goliath and Yellow Jacket that obviously never occurs except for in Hank's head.
What a great fake fight scene this is.
It's great, and John Buscema is my favorite Avengers artist, or one of them. You know, definitely top 3.
Who's your other 2?
George Perez, and I always liked John Byrne.
All right, good.
John Byrne didn't really have a long run on the book, but Byrne, Perez, and then Buscema, in no particular order either. But Roy Thomas is what has written some of the best Avengers stories too. So this was kind of a renaissance in the Avengers stories. Prior to this, when they introduced the Vision, there were a bunch of stories that were kind of standalone, not really impactful in the Marvel universe. It was kind of like a ho hum, like Roy was just kind of going through the paces. But here is where everything starts picking up. Once they introduce Vision, then they introduce Yellow Jacket, and then the marriage in issue 60, and then it's kind of it's some good stories come out of that. But anyway, when we talk about Madness, Hank Pym was always been my go-to, and there's a bunch of characters you can pick and that we didn't, right? Like Moon Knight. The Moon Knight was, I can't believe no one picked Moon Knight. But
we talked about Moon Knight not so long ago.
We did. But Hank Pym has always been, when I think about heroes that kind of triumph over their mental issues, where you've seen it even in Tales of Suspense back in the 60s and Tales to Astonish, and then into the pages of Avengers, when he switches his when he switches his costumes and character, like when he becomes from Ant-Man to Giant Man, they even say he didn't feel adequate as a member of the Avengers, being just Ant-Man, because he had Thor and Iron Man, and then of course Captain America standing there 2 issues later after he turns to Giant Man, and then he takes the leave of absence, and when he comes back, he's now Goliath. So and then he's stuck at 10 feet, and then so he's not even Goliath, right? He's just a 10-foot tall dude. And then, he has these problems throughout here. This is where they actually really get into his mental break and his feelings of inadequacy. And that's kind of really what I love Hank Pym for, is because he triumphs over that, even though he fails as much as he triumphs. And that to me, that's really the true definition of a hero for me, is that he never stops trying. And then, of course, 213, I didn't really want to talk about because that's like his biggest failure. And it's tough. It was, I think, honestly, that practically ruined his character for me.
All right.
Okay. But this issue I love because he became a better hero after this.
All right. Cool. Well, I've got to be honest. I'll put my hands up right now and I will say this. The whole Ant-Man, Giant Man, Yellow Jacket thing, when I was a kid, I was like, I missed all, of course, the mental, I missed the pointers for the mental health issues, or the mental ill health issues, I should say. I was like, dude, just pick a costume. Be done with it. Pick one. It's all the same bloody powers anyway. It's not like clothes don't make the man. Crazy. See? Crazy.
Actually, I like his power set when he was Dr. Pym in West Coast Avengers, where he wasn't changing size, but he had his pockets full of all the different gadgets. I thought that was pretty fun.
Dr. Pym. Oh
Dr.
my God.
Pym.
Yeah.
Dr. Gadget.
Yeah, of course. Do you guys have Pims over there, the drink?
No.
All right, so over here in the UK, we have this drink. It's a summer drink called Pims. All right, it's like a drink. It's alcoholic, and the idea is you put lots of fruit in it. You put some mint, strawberries, different types of berries. It's a summer drink. You stick it in the fridge, you chill it out, and then when it's really hot weather, you pull it out. And there's this whole big advert thing called "It's Pims Time." All right, so every time I hear Pym, that's what I'm thinking about.
Well, that's making me laugh because that sounds like you're walking out of a pool of cold water.
Oh, well, there you go. I'll dig out a picture as we're talking. 13th, what was your view on this book?
I have mixed reactions to the history of Hank Pym, it's well documented in the pages of Avengers, and it's kind of like, this was a man that was walking among gods or demigods at one point. When you have the original lineup, the Hulk, Thor, Iron Man, Captain America joins. You have the Wasp, who has been way more successful
Yep.
in the Avengers ranks than Hank Pym has been. It's an identity crisis for him. He doesn't know who he wants to be. He doesn't know what he wants to be. He feels like he's bringing nothing to the table. Then, like you said, Bud, when he becomes Goliath, he thinks he's it, and when he's it, he can't handle that either.
Yep.
And as Yellow Jacket, he takes a turn for the worse. And you're right, this is really the starting point of yet another identity for Hank Pym, and he goes dark.
Yep.
And it makes everything around him go darker. Just the way he's describing himself in a battle with Giant Man, it takes it to a dark place. And that's one thing that if this is your first introduction of a new character in Yellow Jacket, I agree. I do like the design more than any of the other identities he's had, but this just went down a road that I don't think anybody could have seen coming at the time. John Buscema's art, classic, as always. The only parts I don't like are with the Spider-Man cameo in here.
Oh yeah, Spider-Man's awful.
And the flashbacks reminded me almost of like Enter the Dragon, when each fighter is on the way to the island. They take 20 minutes of the film to explain the backstory. So I felt like I got hung up at that part a little bit. But then, as the story continues, how does it make sense that if you want to join a team that stands for good and justice and what have you, that you go in there and beat them all up? Or you go in there bragging that you just took down one of the Avengers, and worse yet, you saying that you killed him, or you left him to suffer a fate that, hey, if he makes it, great. If he doesn't, who cares? I'm here anyways. So that was like, okay.
I was surprised that they didn't do a big fight scene.
Right. And, towards the end, how they have the Wasp turn from, someone who gets captured towards the end, like, hey, I'm going to marry him, is a complete, 180 there. And
180. Whoo.
Yeah, well, she willfully wanted to be with him at some point too.
Well,
yeah. Okay. So towards the end, the panel art wise, I think is the best panel that John Buscema draws in his book, with the Wasp turning around, declaring that she wants to marry him. A lot of this would resurface in the pages of West Coast Avengers when Hank Pym kind of walks down memory lane and says, look, man, like, I really screwed up for all these years.
Yeah.
Now I can do good. And I guess the moral of that story is just be yourself. And he finally was. And I think that's where readers started respecting Hank Pym more.
Yeah. I think Steve Englehart did a lot to try to fix Hank Pym in the pages of West Coast. And even then,
kind of like the creators, like they had, like the character suffers because the creators, it's like you have him walking among giants. How does he blend with that team chemistry? And I don't know, he kind of didn't in the beginning.
Well, the problem is it doesn't affect Batman, does it? When he's walking around in the Justice League.
That's Batman. It's two different characters.
Yeah. I know, but right. So for me, this book was going along swimmingly till I got to this bit. At this point, I was like, and this is probably where you have to switch off today's sensibilities and go with the flow of the book from its time.
Yep.
Right? Because I'm not going to stand here and condone forcing yourself on a woman just to try and impress her. And then you read this book through, he forces himself on her there. Maybe I'll take something else. Then all of a sudden she's like, oh, well, maybe I don't want you to stop. And 2 pages on, she's going to marry him. It makes no sense. I know this is the 60s and all, and different ages and different societal impacts and stuff. But are women even in the 60s that dense? I don't get it. I'm not going to say I'm offended, but I was aghast. There you go, aghast that I mean, obviously different times and stuff, so they get a pass for some of it, but still, really.
They explain in the next issue that she knew it was Hank. So that was, I mean, that kind of explains this a bit away, but not really, because of the way Roy wrote the book.
Well, you also got to think.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to think, right? I mean, there's the way the threat Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes Marvel, as a company, are quite throwaway or were quite throwaway with their female characters.
Oh, just so we could talk about Invisible Girl for a second. I mean, Stan wrote Reed was an extreme sexist in the pages of Fantastic Four for years, and no one really ever called it out. So
yeah,
and Namor didn't mind.
And there you go. There's a Pims, just so everyone can see what the hell I'm talking about.
Oh, look at that! Look at all that fruit.
Yeah. It's cast as one of your 5 a day drinking one of those bad boys.
Is there any alcohol in there?
Oh yeah, the liquid's alcohol, man.
Oh, okay.
It's cool. It's called Pims. The sort of pin particles you can get behind.
We call it Starks.
I'm sure there is an American version of that somewhere along the line. All right, so it's my shout. So I kind of failed on this one because I thought my introduction to this character was in a Brave and the Bold issue. I can't remember which one it was, but it might even be Detective Comics when I think back now. And he always struck me as being bonkers. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Not quite the Joker, not quite as serious. It was just daft. And when we talked about madness being the thing for this pod, it kind of struck to me that we'd go, this would be a good call. So I'm talking about the Creeper. All right. So for those that want the rundown on this, the Creeper, this is showcase number 73 from March 1968. Making it the oldest book we looked at. There you go. A really poor copy you can get this in the UK for £22. A high price copy, a good decent standard, is £529, but that's imported from the States. All right. Go Collect didn't have a price for this one. There you go. So written, it's of DC from the 60s, so no credits. Damn you to hell, DC. However, one look into this book and you can clearly see that the art is Mr. Steve Ditko all the way through. So this is written and drawn by Steve Ditko. Apologies for the lack of colorist or letterer credits. As I said, DC aren't particularly fond of that. So reading this, it kind of reads like a pseudo mix between an Iron Man and a Captain America origin. There is some daft disguises, which, to be fair, a daft disguise is pretty much how Batgirl comes into fruition down the line. And then Jack Ryder's the kind of the TV personality who's known for making his mouth go, gets caught up in some shenanigans with all these half-dressed, half-cooked villains, ends up getting implanted with this serum and this activator, which makes his uniform go invisible, and thereon begins his fight against crime, because that's what you do when you'd be dressed up in a yellow suit and green underpants.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you do, right? Reading this book, it didn't seem as bonkers as I thought it was. I remember the one I remember was very much a kind of in your face, over the top laughing character. And yeah, the guy laughs here, but there's no discernible reason why he laughs. I don't know if I missed something. I don't know.
Well, he explains in the book, and he says, "Oh, the it seems like the villains become unnerved when I cackle," and then he just continues to do it.
Yeah, I failed on this book. I absolutely swung and missed. So I'm going to say I'll hold my hands up and I say I apologize. I apologize for picking this book. It's Steve Ditko. I like Steve Ditko art, so there's a bit of a win-win there.
In your defense, he's bonkers later. I think what happens is after this, I think, he laughs all the time. That's why I always picked, when I thought of the Creeper, I always thought of, forgive me, but The Killing Joke, that cover where the ha-has on the back or something like that.
Okay.
And I always thought that was ripped off from the Creeper. And
I thought of the Creeper when I picked this book, and I was going from memory. I thought of the Creeper as a kind of Joker style character, and I was absolutely like gobsmacked reading this. I was like, "Where is this? Is just standard superhero stuff." But there you go. And I feel sorry because it was 13's choice to go March Madness. So 13, can you please forgive me?
We'll see. Yeah, if for those out there that are wondering with the credits, Ditko does have his name on the cover of the book on one of the pages that's flying around
Well,
in the background.
the letters page actually says it's like
That too.
meet the men behind the Creeper, and they talk about
Is
the
it?
writer and the artist.
Correct. Right.
On that page?
No, it's there's actually a whole page that says meet the men behind the Creeper.
Okay.
If you scroll enough, you'll find it. Towards like I think it's like the halfway point in the book, but Ditko doesn't say much. But the writer, Don Segal, who's the writer, tells everybody about himself.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So apologies. So Don Segal wrote the dialogue for the Creeper.
Yes. So obviously this was a Ditko drew the story with the plot, and then just hired like Don Segal came in and scripted it. So so that's why this book is reminiscent more of like a Marvel style book because of Ditko. But I don't think that this work raises to the level of the work he was doing at Marvel.
Yeah, one of the things with Showcase too, kind of similar to what we've said about Marvel Spotlight, this was pretty much a title that was used for this exactly, to trot out new characters and ideas and hope they'd stick. And quite honestly, an idea like this on any given day by probably not so popular artist may not have survived. But this is Steve Ditko, and by this time, he was a household name.
Right. But the thing that bugs me is like Ditko leaves Spider-Man, comes over to DC, and you pick up this. I would be disappointed, to be totally honest with you. And in fact, I was more intrigued by the very last page where they said that Steve Ditko will be back shortly with Hawk and Dove. I was like, oh, okay, Hawk and Dove.
Absolutely. I think you make a valid point. You make a valid point about leaving Spider-Man to do something like the Creeper, but to sort of counteract a little bit of what 13th was saying about the Marvel version of Showcase. Showcase has a huge history in DC world. I mean, that's where the Barry Allen Flash first appeared, right?
Right.
Yeah. There's a Green Lantern in a Showcase issue down the line somewhere.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure if you understood what I said. So what I'm saying is that Showcase was used as a platform to debut new characters and hope that they would stick.
Like the Barry Allen Flash.
At the time, yes.
And the Hal Jordan Green Lantern.
Yes. Right. Same for Hawk and Dove, which follows, and Creeper and whatnot.
Okay, cool. So I think Showcase as a idea, especially when it comes to some of the characters that came out of that, is stronger than the Marvel version of Showcase.
Oh, absolutely. There's not even a question of that.
Yeah, one has actually withstood the test of time. Marvel Spotlight, had 2 volumes?
Yeah.
There was a couple of books that they were using, Marvel Premiere, Marvel Spotlight, you know.
So let's get this rounded off. So 13th, Creeper, yes, no, like it, love it, bonkers.
Pass. I'll pass.
What do you mean you'll pass? I talked about your book.
I didn't write or draw that book. The Creeper is just I respect what Steve Ditko has done. It does scream like this is his work all over the place, but it's like they didn't really invest in this character until years later, and by then they kept some of the elements from this book. You learn that he's a part of Gotham. You hear he has a radio show. You can hear that he's crazy. They started focusing more on the mental side. Here in this book, it's kind of like they had to retcon it at least a little bit to kind of say, like, in here he's totally well within his faculties, but it's almost like that Batman element. Let me wear a dark cape because it instills fear in criminals. Here he's like, let me laugh because it's throwing them off.
Well, Shadow, just saying.
Yeah.
I just the costume design and the color just completely throws me off with this character. Still does. I remember seeing him being animated in the Justice League Unlimited series as well, and I'm like, okay, so the Creeper's in there. So I know of him. I don't wake up and every day and say, hey, let me just go find books with the Creeper. He's had his own books and things like that, but it's just never. I never gravitated to this character.
Cool, fair shout. He has been. You're absolutely right. 13. He's been retconned left, right, and centre. To in all different manners. He's had a mini series. He's had a starring role, co-starring role, I should say, in the Batman comics. Jack Ryder makes appearance in Arkham video games twice. He's in Asylum as a radio. He's in City as someone you have to save. So, there is elements there, I suppose, some history.
I feel like his Jack Ryder cameos as a media personality may be more impactful than the Creeper in the pages of Batman, and it's always thrown me off when he's teamed up with Batman. It's just, why would you want to team up with somebody like that if you're Batman? Wouldn't it remind you a little bit of the Joker with the constant laughing and the insanity bits?
So I feel exactly the same way about Plastic Man. Why would Batman ever team up with Plastic Man? It blows my mind. Professor, your take on the Creeper?
I think it's probably, one of Steve Ditko's sillier ideas.
Okay.
I didn't buy it either. Like I read the story and I was just like, kind of reminded me a little bit of Speedball and the way that they kind of drew him. Steve Ditko had his heyday was on Amazing Spider-Man, and he never ever got that rose to the level of fame that he did after Spider-Man. No matter what.
Machine Man.
Machine Man was all right, but it wasn't Spider-Man.
But Spider-Man.
Right. So
that's like saying John Romita was no good after Spider-Man. That's
John Romita didn't really do much after Spider-Man. He kind of retired and became the director of art.
All right, okay. So let me just think. Ross Andrew.
Well, okay.
I'll pull that one out, didn't I?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that for him to leave Spider-Man, and obviously the way he left Spider-Man was he didn't get along with Stan, right? So he leaves Marvel and he goes over to DC, and I think DC, we remember DC at the time in 68, 69, they're still locked into the classic Silver Age DC books where they're all kind of bland, and I don't think his style worked with DC. They had him come in, and he was probably still working like Kirby did, drawing from plots, and then having to have a scripter come in. We saw that obviously in the letters column there. I don't think that's the way DC worked. DC generally worked from script to create the art. Yeah. So I think it was kind of a bit of a backwards thing, even though Kirby actually comes into DC and does the same thing. But Kirby's work,
Yeah, I always think it's interesting that out of the guys that pretty much were at the foundation of Marvel, 2 of them would come over to DC eventually. And, for Steve Ditko, everyone knew him for Doctor Strange, and they obviously know him for Spider-Man. And then this is rolled out, and I hold out hope for the Creeper. I think that what Steve Ditko did here is probably not the strongest foundation, but it's a foundation nonetheless that others could work with. And you never know, this character could make a resurgence one day in the right hands.
It could be like a weird TV show or something HBO Max could do something really out in left field, maybe.
Unfortunately, maybe a mature content book would probably suit this character better, because he has been retconned to be a part of Gotham City, although he's not the main focus of Gotham City.
Yeah, and they could use the media element too.
Right.
Just imagine a Jack Ryder, Vicky Vale mini-series.
Yeah.
And on that note, everyone turns off. fair enough. my idea falls on deaf ears. That's it for this week. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, 13th.
Thank you, Johnny, for coming out, even though you don't feel good.
Indeed, I apologise for everyone who saw me cough up a lung. Just glad you didn't hear it. Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favourite shows, including Professor.
No Prize Podcast, all about Marvel Comics, the Marvel MCU, and Disney Plus. Moon Knight starts next week.
And on that note, Obi-Wan, has that started yet?
No, Obi-Wan starts in May.
Okay, I'll hold out for that then. 13th?
Yeah, I'll be watching Moon Knight.
Yeah, of course you would. And of course, don't forget to check out TDC, the show that helped start it all. Early episodes feature that guy down there. Where's my
Batman?
appointment?
Iron Man.
Yeah, that one.
No Deacon Blackfire.
Yeah, no Deacon Blackfire. And of course, you've also got Outside the Panels with hosts and guests abound talk about their comics. All right. All that's left for me to do, as always, I've been your host, Johnny Machine Hughes. Adios.
Bye.